right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. We're going to talk about the press conference for the 2025 Mr. Olympia that just wrapped up. Honestly, I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about it. I'm sure you guys watched it as well. I thought it was kind of boring. I think one of the main critiques of the press conference over the last few years has been that they haven't returned to that, like, bleacher style where they've got everybody out on stage at the same time. And they only really got away from that, at least I thought, because of COVID, and they started doing it differently with how they brought the people out on stage. But like with this one, first they brought out just the 4 Mr. Olympia champs that are competing in Open. So they brought out Samson, they brought out Derek, they brought out Hottie, and they brought out Brandon. And essentially each one of them just said, I'm going to win this year. And they brought out the contenders separately. So Nick Walker, Andrew Jacked, Martin Fitzwater, Behruz Tabani, Urs Kalasinski, guys that they thought were vying for the title. And I feel like they missed a golden opportunity because one of the things that the press conference is so notorious for is back and forths between guys that are rivals. And really, you know, Derek and Samson, they do have a rivalry to an extent because Derek just beat Samson at the Arnold and Samson had just beaten Derek at the Olympia. He's the one that took the title from Derek. They didn't really have much of a back and forth at all. Hadi Chupin doesn't really speak much English. He doesn't really have a real rivalry with any of these guys. Brandon Curry kind of just said, you know, I'm still here. I want to let the judges know that I'm still here. He didn't really seem super confident that he was going to win. Just kind of said, I'm still here. I'm bringing a better physique than I brought to the Arnold, and we're going to be in contention. So it really wasn't that. There's not really that much to talk about. There wasn't really any key moments there that stood out to me. And I feel like they just missed a golden opportunity to have Nick and Derek on stage at the same time. I mean, I just don't understand why they didn't do that. Nick and Derek, I think you guys would probably agree with this. They were the biggest rivalry going into this show. In my opinion, in open bodybuilding, the back and forth between Derek and Nick was like one of the biggest selling points of the show. And they didn't even put them on stage at the same time. And Nick, this is the other thing I didn't understand. When you look at the contenders on stage, Nick had a whole empty couch to himself. They could have brought Derek or Samson or any of those guys out to sit next to him. There was plenty of room on stage. So I didn't really understand that decision or the way they set up this press conference. It's like, how could you not have Nick and Derek up there together? Because I would say when I was like writing down, I was kind of taking notes during this thing, like what was the interesting moments. The most interesting parts I would say were Nick. Nick was very confident in this thing, saying that he's going to win the show. I'll play a clip for you guys here.
Top 5 or top 8? Nick Walker will be Mr. Olympia Saturday night. All right.
And Nick was so confident in what he was saying. He was making me believe it. And I also should say, Nick got by far the largest crowd reaction of anybody that walked out on that stage, like by a mile. They individually introduced each person that came out, and Nick by far got the largest crowd reaction. He's clearly the fan favorite. And I think his back and forth with Bob was interesting. I'll play a clip from that right here.
What do you say one more time?
How does it feel to shake the hand of a man who said you were going to be 7th?
8th.
8th? Oh, that's even worse.
Let's just make sure we got the right information here. What do I think? Who the hell is that guy? Yeah.
They seemed like they just kind of played it off and said, you know, it's all fun and games. It's all just jokes. I feel like Nick probably legitimately doesn't like Bob, and I think he's going to relish in the fact if Nick does win the Olympia, which, like I said, he's so confident, he's kind of got me even believing it now. If Nick does win, I feel like there's almost nothing more poetic. There's almost no better story than his rivalry with Bob, the guy that announces the winner. Bob literally saying earlier this year, in that beef, I'm going to be the guy that announces you in 8th place. If you competed back in my time, you wouldn't have even been a pro. I literally don't think there would be anything more poetic than Bob having to announce Nick as the new Mr. Olympia. And I feel like that's part of why so many people are rooting for Nick, aside from the fact that he's got great charisma, he's got a great personality, and obviously one of the freakiest physiques that we've seen in a very long time. But I think that storyline of Bob having to announce him as the winner, it would probably be the greatest moment in the last several years of bodybuilding. I mean, it would be pretty epic. And it's not like Bob necessarily ever attacked Nick personally, but I mean, he did attack his physique. He attacked him as a bodybuilder and said, "You wouldn't have even been a pro back in my day. You'll be lucky to get 8th when I announce you in 8th place at the Olympia." And I think now I think he's legitimately in the conversation as a top contender. He's legitimately in the conversation for top 3. And I think now people are legitimately talking about him as the potential winner. And seeing the reaction that Nick got coming out onto this press conference stage, I feel like the roof would blow off the place if Bob announces Nick as the winner on Saturday night. I just want to see that result just for the sake of that reaction alone. It would be like a WWE level crowd pop if Nick won that show. I feel like it would probably be the loudest reaction that we've seen. Now, let's get on to what I think is probably the most exciting and maybe the most important part about this entire prejudging. And shout out to Dennis James, because Dennis James he was the only one that had the balls to ask this question. But when they brought out the classic guys, and they only brought out Mike Sommerfeld and Ramon Dino, he asked Mike point blank, "What did you weigh in at this morning?" And Mike gave the answer, 204 pounds.
So we managed to go down more than 14 pounds in a few days to make weight 204 this morning in order to make the weight to compete on Saturday. But I can tell you for a fact, I'm going to be 5'9" next show.
This is extremely significant. Mike confirmed that what he had to do to make weight was to crash diet, and he said he lost 14 pounds. I think he said overnight, or like within the last couple of days, to get to that weight limit. So this is a very huge detail, because that means that all the speculation about Mike and Mike's height was correct. When they remeasured him, he was not in the weight class that he was in last year. So I think that's a huge thing, that all this speculation and all this drama, it turned out to be correct. He was not in the weight division he was supposed to be in. So I think this changes things. I really do. I think that this is going to change the outcome of the Olympia this year. I said before that I think if Mike is able to weigh his normal 212 like he was last year, I think he's the favorite to win. I think if he has to crash diet to get to a new weight class that he wasn't expecting, I think Ramon is now the favorite to win. And I just think this is a good example. It's good because Mike gets to compete. He's not disqualified. He did make weight, but it wasn't the weight that he got second place at. And I think this is important because all of this internet criticism that the IFBB could have dismissed as just nonsense, but they recognized by all this evidence that was out there, okay, maybe we made a mistake. They checked it, and they did make a mistake. The internet was correct. And I think it's a very valid conversation to say, is that why Mike did so well? Because he was competing at a heavier weight than he should have, and that led him to have this like ultra-muscular classic physique that seemed so much more muscular than the other guys. Is it because he had that 8-pound weight advantage? And I think for all the negativity that Mike has gotten, you have to admire the tenacity of him to lose that 14 pounds and still be able to make the weight. But I think the point still stands that the people were right. And I still think that the only reason the IFBB remeasured these guys was specifically because of the controversy around Mike. And that proved that they did the right thing by remeasuring them, because when they remeasured them, they found that it was a different result than last time. So I'm sure this time they did it stricter, and they found that he was shorter. And I think that is probably the most exciting, most relevant, important piece of information to come out of this press conference. So Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about the press conference overall. Like I said, I personally kind of felt like it was a little bit long. It was a little bit slow. It was a little bit boring. And I think the mic thing was probably the highlight, in addition to Nick saying that he's going to win. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.